hello and welcome to another amazing guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I bring to you Dr. Jean. Now, Dr. Jean Oursler is somebody with a PhD in business psychology, top-rated speaker, world-class business performance coach, the creator of Caveman Brain and an EOS implementer. Love EOS. You can see if you're watching the video on YouTube, got traction over my right shoulder here. Dr. Jean's clients call her the results queen because she's about getting unprecedented results that creates and maintains unprecedented levels of performance. Dr. Jean uses her mission to leave you better than I found you, to help everyone understand what your caveman brain is so you can prevent it from holding you back and use it to propel you forward to better results in business and in life. And fun fact, Dr. Jean has visited 5 continents and is planning on visiting the other 2 in 2023. I actually never thought about that. Let's see. I've been to North America. I've been to Europe. I've been to Israel, and I guess that's technically in Asia. And that's it. So I have not been to Africa. I have not been to Australia, and I've not been to South America. So I'm behind. I got to catch up to Dr. Jean. Well, Dr. Jean, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And don't forget Antarctica, because that's the last.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
That's it. Yeah, baby. That's the last continent.
Is that where one of the 2 you have not been to yet?
I have not been to Antarctica, and I've not been to South America. So I'm planning on knocking both off in one trip at the end of the year.
That is awesome. Kudos to you. Any time that I hear about somebody who's just doing something because it's been their dream to do that, it's on their list of things to get done, and they actually go and do it. It's a wonderful thing, because so often we get caught up in preparing for those possibilities and never actually executing and making those happen. All right. Our audience just got like the canned bio, but they want to know, who is Jean Oursler? How did you get into this? What brings you to the show? Like, what's the story behind the woman in the room here? So give us that backstory real quick.
So who is Dr. Jean, the results queen? So I do have a PhD in business psychology, and my clients crown me the results queen because I'm all about getting results at the end of the day. And I love lawyers. We work with a lot of law firms because lawyers did not get into the field of law to be business developers. And yet, in order to make partner, you have to bring in new business. Oh, and also, in order for your law firm to continue on, you need some lifeblood, which is usually new clients. So for us in Caveman Brain, we find that for lawyers to learn how to not be salesy, pushy, and aggressive, even though like some people say that's what they do in their job, we don't. The fact is that they already have great skill set to find new clients. It's just their caveman brain that has to be changed. And then what's great is that once we turn on sales, the EOS helps them in the structure of their organization, because most lawyers did not go to school to be business people. They went to school to be lawyers, and they don't necessarily run the best law firm. But that's how we got here today.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about the intersection of the caveman brain and results queen and the EOS implementation, because EOS doesn't really focus a whole lot on client acquisition. It's more about running the business in a format that's set up for results. So let's jump into this idea of you being the results queen and neuroscience behind the sales process. What's the secret sauce? Like, is it in the sales process? Is it acquiring leads? Like, where does your work begin?
So our work begins with your brain. So we find that for most lawyers, and again, really good at the law, but not necessarily really great at new business development, because they all have a lot of mind trash around that. Usually it comes around to, I don't want to be an ambulance chaser is usually what it comes down to. And they have ethics. So they want to make sure that they're doing it in the most ethical way. So for us, it starts with caveman brain, which is your amygdala. It's your internal protection system. So think, fight, flight, or freeze. And the idea behind caveman brain is that it's only there to ensure that you don't die, which is great when we were cave people, because when we heard the rustles of the bushes, or we saw the bushes rustling, our brain would flood our body with chemicals, and we would either fight, flight, or freeze. So our brains are constantly looking for danger. We scan the horizon, just like breathing. We don't know what's even happening. And we only know what it sees and what it hears. So if we're telling ourselves, I don't want to be an ambulance chaser, or I'm bad at sales, or I just want to do my work as a lawyer, then you will never be good at sales. However, what we find, and we don't even call it sales, we call it new business development, because sales is a 4-letter word. Although my daughter tells me it's 5, but I'm going to go with 4. And the fact is, at the end of the day, if we just get lawyers to change what we call their hat, like literally take off your lawyer hat and put on your marketing hat, they're great at it. And that's what makes the difference in them being successful and even being more successful.
So I get this concept of needing to believe in yourself, trust yourself in order to be successful, right? But what if you're trying to create those relationships like before the sales process? How does this help that?
So it's much more than believing in yourself. It's really understanding who you are, because caveman brain comes from 4 different places. It comes from your parents, it comes from your childhood, it comes from your culture and your life experiences. So you're carrying that as a lawyer. And the fact is that lawyers are really good at making friends, building relationships with really anybody, because think about when they have to work into court and they have to work with the adversary across the table, right? That's part of their job, is to be able to read people and to be able to do it quickly. So lawyers, the fact is you sort of have to point them in the right direction. But often the fact is that most lawyers get business from other lawyers. That's where people start. So if you start with that and think about who should I be talking to, most lawyers will also start with the people they went to law school with. But there's a lot of other people. And then once you start with that, you can expand into centers of influence or other what we call marketing attraction vehicles, because you want to pull people to you. You don't want to go out and chase. We never make anyone go out and chase. We always make sure that everyone feels comfortable when they're doing new business development. That's really important.
Okay, so we get that those relationships going with other attorneys or in centers of influence, or whatever the third thing was that you shared, and and
marketing
now
attraction vehicles.
There you go. Market attraction vehicles. Maybe if we have time, we'll dive into what that means. But so now you've got Joe Schmo attorney is referring somebody to you. How does the business development process look using the caveman brain way of doing it different than whatever somebody might be doing right now, and how they treat that person from when they become a lead until they become a client?
So we actually never call them a lead. We always call them a potential client, because your caveman brain thinks about that. So just change some words will help you a lot. And as one of the managing partners that we work with, he said, I never want to go through awkward lunch again. I love that language, because before pandemic, that's what everyone did, right? They went to the awkward lunch. So the caveman brain business growth system has 4 phases: alignment, accountability, expansion, and mind junk. The idea is that in alignment, you need to know your ideal target client like your science project. And for lawyers, we tell them like your adversary. So if you don't know who your ideal person is and you don't have the right stories to attract them, then they're never going to be your client. So that's the first phase. The second phase is accountability. So make sure that you are accountable and you're doing all the actions, because it's really easy to get buried in your day-to-day work. So you have to make time for new business development. We say 5 hours a week. Most of our lawyers will tell us if they spend just 5 hours a week, each week in new business development, it increases their new business development exponentially. So just 5 hours a week is not a lot of time. Although we talk about billable hours, and we make sure that's part of the system when we work with attorneys, that you're doing your billable hours as well, because it's really easy to get behind on billable hours. Then in terms of expansion, most people, when they start to get really good at this, they're like, we want to do more. How do I do more? So we want to talk about doing more in less time, so you get more efficient in expansion. And then what happens is you end up in mind junk, which it always happens. And so there's a circle that you constantly go through as you're doing your business development journey. And gosh knows I've been through lots of those phases. So when you're in mind junk, that's all you're focused on is mind junk. And what happens is once you come out of mind junk, you end up being back in alignment because something happened, like you learned more about your target audience, or you decided to add on a different service, or you wanted to originate for other people. So then you start to go through the whole process again. So those are the 4 phases that anybody can use. And once you learn them, you use them for the rest of your life, and they're easy.
So it sounds, I mean, you really explained it well, but it sounds like when you get through the mind junk, you start at alignment again. My original question to you was going to be, well, like, how do you get in alignment? Like, is that like a few month project of going out on a deserted island and getting really, familiar with who you want to work with and what, or is it something that you're just tweaking little tiny things along the way, and each time you get into the alignment phase, you make one little change? I mean, how does that work?
Well, it depends on where you are in your legal journey, meaning that if you are a more experienced business developer, you probably are making some tweaks. If you're not as experienced in new business development, you're probably building your foundation. And sometimes when you go through alignment, it could take a couple months, and sometimes it takes, 2 weeks, 2 days. It just really depends on what's happening in the alignment and how well you know your ideal target client. We find, though, for attorneys, what's really interesting is some of them spend almost a year in mind junk getting ready for new business development because they have such caveman brain around doing new business development. And yet once they are set free, it becomes super easy to do. And that's one of the reasons why we love talking about it, because we want every attorney to be super successful and not just feel like they have to be tied to billable hours.
Yeah, you started with the first phase being alignment, but I think in reality, when anybody starts with awareness around this, they're probably starting from the mind junk phase.
Yeah, they are. A lot of times they are, which is however, what's great about the circle is you can enter it in Caveman Brain Business Growth System. You can enter the circle at any time. So if you find that you're not being held accountable enough because, everything else gets in the way, then that's where you start. That's what's great about it.
Yeah, and I think it's very true. Like, there's a lot of the mantra going around, like, you need to spend time working on your business and not just in your business. And that's from the perspective of running your business as a CEO. But when it comes to new business development, I'm trying to use your vernacular. When it comes to new business development, that's not really, like, people won't consider that working on their business, but it's also not working in your business, right? Because in your business is what you perceive as operational. So it's almost like we need to carve out 2 different pieces of time. We need to carve out time to work on our business as a CEO, and we also need to carve out time for new business development besides for the work that we're doing. And this, I mean, honestly, this really bodes to a lot of the people who listen to this podcast might be a solo attorney, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate that journey. And the more that we highlight things like this, the more it should be obvious to you that you shouldn't be trying to be the solo attorney, because when you do that, if you're doing 5 hours of new business development, you're doing another 5 hours of being the CEO each week, well, suddenly you only have 30 hours to actually produce. So you're already at 75% capacity of what a hired attorney might be able to produce for your business. And honestly, it doesn't really work that way, because even though it's only 10 hours we just highlighted, there's bleed over, there's the changing from one task to another. So you're probably spending more like 20 hours doing those things, which means that you're only 50% productive from a legal work production standpoint. So I really think that as we have these conversations and you realize the importance of doing these things, that you also need to realize the importance of bringing on staff to execute on a lot of the work that needs to happen, so you can focus on the things that really matter.
Totally agree with that. It was absolutely Totally agree.
Okay, so let's talk about the intersection of caveman brain and EOS.
Hmm.
How do those two play well together, and where where does where do you kind of use the same things that you're teaching your clients with caveman brain to then use that in their EOS implementation?
So what's interesting about EOS is that it's a great framework for people who don't know how to run a company to run a company. I mean, not don't know how, I shouldn't say it that way, who have never been trained to run a company. It's a very simple system to use. What's interesting about it is that there are a couple holes in EOS, no offense to my EOS community, but finances. So having a fractional CFO is really important. Marketing, sales and marketing. So that's where we come in. Technology and human resources. Like you can't be everything to everyone. So you end up in those areas, usually outsourcing, or in many cases, when we work with smaller law firms on EOS, the managing partner is sitting in 4 or 5 different seats. And if you're a single person, you're sitting in all the seats. So,
Right.
And according to the 4-hour work week, the more you outsource, the better it is. So if you're a solopreneur, outsource as much as you possibly can, because that will absolutely help you. And one of the things I say to the smaller law firms that we work with, I'm like, did you go to school to be the finance person? Did you go to school to be the sales and marketing person? Right. So even just having someone helping you with your marketing and then being really efficient in your sales, which is one of the reasons why we've tracked 5 hours is what almost all of our attorneys spend on new business development, because we know time is really precious to lawyers. So the fact is that you want to make EOS, and when you talk about working 10 hours a week on your visits, that might be, but what's really great about EOS is that it streamlines everything. So you're really spending 5 full days on your business doing the things that needs to be done. And then with the software of 90IO, because we run on EOS, it really makes it much more efficient. So you're really spending maybe an hour and a half each week doing all the things you need to do. And then if you outsource it to everybody else, or if you're in a larger law firm, everyone takes the responsibilities, then it becomes very efficient and effective. And that's really what we want to do. We're about making money, making things effective, and having fun.
Yeah, I love that. And the truth is you're right. Any system that's out there has gaps. Like there's, everybody's got their solution to the problem, but it solves one problem and creates another. So I like that you highlighted the holes in EOS, and how you're just plugging one of those, which is on the sales and marketing side. Now, let's go back to that initial conversation where we talked about the leads, the bad word, and where they come from. So you basically laid out, like, attorneys start getting referrals from other attorneys, then they go to centers of influence, which I presume are relationships with other types of people that would have access to their target client. So for example, I have a client who's an immigration attorney. She's reaching out to accountants who might be interacting with her target market. So I don't really have a lot of questions around that, but the next one that you shared is your
marketing attraction vehicles.
So talk to me about that. What is marketing attraction vehicles, and how does somebody go about implementing that?
So marketing attraction vehicles, you can actually download it from our website on cavemanbrain.com. It has all different types of marketing. We call them vehicles, but marketing activities that you can do that will attract your ideal target client to you. So for example, golf is a marketing attraction vehicle. If you're playing golf during the week for business, and we have a whole webinar on how to maximize golf to get business, then you need to be doing business development on the golf course. And I realize there's etiquette, but the fact is if that's a marketing attraction vehicle, you're using it to pull people to you, whether they're centers of influence or their potential clients. So that's one. Podcasting is another. So there, blogging, social media, networking. So there's a whole bunch of marketing attraction vehicles that you can pick. Speaking is another one, that if you feel comfortable and that's where your target audience is hanging out, then you use to pull your people to you. And the idea behind it is that you need to know your ideal target client. As I said, like your adversary, you need to be able to spot them across the room and go, that's my person. And then once you know that that's your person, it's like you want to help them. And therefore, you're going to be with them until they say no. And lawyers are really good at that. So when you think about a lead, and most people think about filling their funnel, that's the hardest thing I get. I always get, Dr. Jean, I just need help filling my funnel. Once I get them in the room, I can close them. That's not a big deal. But you have to do these marketing attraction vehicles in order to bring people to fill them into your funnel so that you can nurture them through to become potential clients to clients.
Yeah. And I think that, the word funnel really comes from the digital marketing world. And I think that digital marketing is probably the most difficult way for a law firm to bring in new clients. I'm not saying that you can't do it. Certainly is doable. There's a massive industry out there, and it's working for a lot of firms. But if you look at who it's working for, most of them are larger firms. It's because they have the budget behind it. They're able to spend the money to test. They're able to learn and iterate and get better at it. And the smaller firms, they're not like the huge firms. It's probably medium-sized firms, but the smaller firms, they give up too quickly because they don't have that money to spend. So I really like this idea of having basically a menu of things that you can say, oh, I like doing that. I could spend time doing that. That's something that I can do. And what was that URL again?
Oh, cavemanbrain.com. And one of the things I will say, like, for example, I started a networking roundtable with a lawyer and another consultant. He did mergers and acquisitions. And for 3 years, we ran a table that met once a month. Each of us was responsible for bringing 2 people to the table. And we spent about an hour and a half. We had 3 questions that people had to ask. The first was, like, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the ideal client that you are looking for. And then how do you help them was the 3 questions. And for 3 years, we ran the table without having any additions. So the fact is that it's really easy as lawyers to team up with other people who are in your ideal target client that then you can network with in interesting ways and meet new people who can then become either centers of influence that are sending you potential clients or who become your clients yourself.
Yeah, and I think that the example you just gave is one that we can look at and say, look, you think outside the box. Like, you don't have to live within the realm of somebody else's rules. You didn't have a networking group that made sense for you to participate in. You just made your own. You made it something that will work for you. And I think that our listeners should pay attention to that, because you can do whatever works for you. One of the things that I get is, like, oh, the networking events of my BNI group or whatever are always when I'm, taking my kid to school or whatever. So, I just can't participate. Well, so don't be part of BNI. Like, create your own, and recruit your own people. And I love the idea of just, having a couple of people that are founding it with you, and each of you are responsible to bring, a couple of people, which just gets you to fill a small room. And you just keep doing that over and over again. So really, really good idea there. Dr. Jean, as we're nearing the end of our chat today, is there anything in your wheelhouse, your area of expertise that I didn't ask you about that we really should share with our audience today?
We're really good at helping people make money, and we're really good at helping people do that in a comfortable way, because we find that from the neurological point of view, from Caveman Brain, once you tame it, tackle it, and make it your friend, you will be much more successful. And as I said, lawyers have all the right tools. They know how to ask questions. They know how to make friends. They know how to make relationships. They just have to change their hat. And once they do that, they're so successful. So really just change your hat. It's all you have to do.
Yeah, I love that. And all right, so we're going to close out the show. I always close out with 2 questions. I don't know if you've been listening to the podcast, you probably know what they are. So the first is, what's one parting piece of advice or wisdom you want to share with our audience? And the second is, if somebody here listening to this podcast says, hey, I really like what Dr. Jean had to share, and I don't know how to do any of the things she talked about. Like, it sounds really good, but then when I actually sit down and say, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to start getting rid of my junk in my brain, I have no idea how to do that. How do they get in touch with you, take the next step with you, and, and figure out how to navigate this path you just laid out?
So the first thing is a piece of advice you asked, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always say that you need to keep moving forward. Don't let anything get in the way of new business development. It's really the lifeblood of your business. And I went to an association of women lawyers, and I said to them, how many of you want to be partners? And they all raised their hand. And I said to them, how many of you want to do business development? And everyone sat on their hands. And the fact is that you don't have to be afraid of new business development to be successful in the field of law. So go out and be successful. That's what we want. In terms of how people find me, it's really easy, cavemanbrain.com. We have downloadable tools, you have courses. If you want to just send me a question, you can send me a question at jean@cavemanbrain.com. That's my personal email. So feel free to just ask me a question. My mission is to leave you better than I found you. So even if you don't hire us and you need to have something answered, happy to do that. And thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been such a wonderful experience.
It's my absolute pleasure, Dr. Jean. And I just want to go back to your piece of advice that you shared and just kind of piggyback on the tail of that. One of the things that I notice with specifically with law firm owners, and probably is happening when somebody's trying to do business development within a firm that they're working in, is that we spend some time doing business development, and then we get some clients. And then we get lost in serving those clients, and we don't do business development until the need arises again. And then all of a sudden, when we're done with serving those clients, now we have room and we don't know what we're going to do next. And suddenly we're like, oh, I need to go get more clients. And then we start those efforts again. And you kind of mentioned something about consistency, but I want to lean into that for a quick moment, because the key is to always have that pipeline running for you. And the only way for that to happen is for you to have continuous connection, continuous relationships, continuous contact with your network. Or if you're doing marketing, and you're spending money on ads, have those ads running all the time in the background. You have to have a system in place when somebody gets in touch with your firm to take them through that process, through that new business development process, to become clients. And if you end up becoming too busy, that's a wonderful problem to have. So you solve that problem when it comes. But if you stop and start and stop and start, what's going to happen is that your efforts are really ineffective. And then you're going to get stuck in your brain junk because things are not working, and you're not going to continue consistently. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle, almost like Dr. Jean gave us the cycle that's the solution. That's the cycle that's the dissolution. And I really think that buying into that and focusing on making that consistent, whatever it is, even if it's a golf game, make sure you got a golf game every single week. And if that's your thing. And I'm still wrapping my head around it, because I don't play golf, and I never understood why people go play golf. And then you said that you can go play golf and make that your networking, or make that your centers of influence conversations. And I see how that happens, but I really need to learn how to play. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening to this podcast. And this was a great conversation with Dr. Jean. We're here every single week. Every Thursday, we release a new episode, and we will not disappoint. We have amazing people just like Dr. Jean joining us. You may not know, but we released a YouTube channel recently. March of 2023 is when that kicked off. We already have over 100 videos there for you to peruse and enjoy. We're doing a lot of YouTube shorts, so you can jump in there for a quick 90-second injection of information, encouragement, whatever it is that catches your eye when you check it out. But you can get there at profitwithlaw.com/YouTube. And of course, we want you to be subscribed to this podcast. So if you're not already, hit that subscribe button in your podcast player so you get notified when that new episode comes out. And lastly, I know I'm giving you guys a lot of homework today, but the last thing is that we thrive on reviews. And if you're enjoying the show, if you're putting us in your ears every single week, we would love it if you would take just a few moments of your time to go and leave us a rating and review, because when people come to check the show out, they're going to want to know, is this worth listening to? Is this worth dedicating some of my time into? And if you're doing it, someone else probably will benefit the same way that you can. And the only way that they're going to do that is if they see ratings and reviews that are recent, the quantity, the quality, all of that stuff. You know how that works. You want ratings and reviews for your law firm. We need it for the podcast. So take a moment and do that for us. We really appreciate it. And we will catch you next week. Take care.